eso vivo penando.
My name is Jorge Hernández Fujigaki. I was born in the state of Puebla. Well, I grew up in a small town in the mountains. My father was a merchant, a businessman. He bought coffee beans from farmers. He also bought, basically piloncillo, panela, which is like a byproduct of sugar cane. And we were living happily there, but my parents believed that we didn't have the opportunity that we could get in Mexico City. So when I was 10 years old, my family, my whole family, that included 7 children, and my parents moved to Mexico City. He opened a business there. I finished my elementary school as well as middle school, and eventually started studying at the college level. No, I was not an economic, basically immigrant, but rather what I call like a sentimental immigrant that was following a young lady whom I met in Mexico City at the university from the United States. We spent some time living there, and eventually we decided to move to the United States so that she could finish her college studies in the state of Ohio. Mm, I would say yes. I mean, I never expected to move to the United States of America. That was not necessarily part of my master plan. I had plans to travel and to perhaps study in Europe, in Western Europe. That did not happen because my plans were cut short as a result of me meeting this young woman. But I would say that my goals were met in the sense that I completed my studies. I raised a family here, my first family here, and eventually I remarried, and I am currently raising a second family. So I would say that my goals were accomplished. Yes. Well, first of all, when I moved to the U.S., I didn't have a good knowledge of English, so I have to master English. I have to take courses. I have to struggle with conveying my thoughts and my emotions to people that are not fluent in Spanish. Certainly, that is the majority of the people that live in the U.S. So it was quite a challenge. And then becoming familiar with the expectation that the whole society have about you, finding your first job that wouldn't necessarily meet your expectations. Those were part of the challenges, struggling to be somehow accepted, fearful of being discriminated. I would say here and then I did, yes, but I would say quite infrequently. It helps if you have a high level of formal education. It's not necessarily a great equalizer, but it helps because I think people see you through a different light. If you are poor, if you have a very low level of formal education, if your skin is brown, perhaps you might be subjected to higher levels of discrimination. You are holding a job that is menial, that in the pecking order is basically a manual job. Then perhaps you might experience more discrimination than other people that come from Latin America. Well, this place is quite cosmopolitan. I have lived in Chicago. I live in the Detroit metro area. And none compares to the cosmopolitan character of the Washington metro area. Here you have, people from all over the world, and not only from Latin America, but and not only Afro-American, but people of African ancestry, or rather Africans. You also find large groups of people that come from India and from other parts of Asia, including China and South Korea. So this is something that really struck me when I first moved into this part of the country, and the very cosmopolitan international nature of Washington, D.C., a primary destination for diplomats from representatives of trade organizations, Washington, D.C. being the headquarters of firms that work hand in hand or are very close to the federal government. That makes a big difference.
Okay.
Yes, certainly I do. I remade a Mexican national. Practicing my Mexican traditions. Perhaps I'm not talking about the September 16th celebration or honoring basically the revelation of Virgin de Guadalupe on December the 12th in the early part of the early part of the 1530s. But I'm just talking about lending continuity to your cultures. For me, speaking Spanish at home. Perhaps watching TV programming from Latin America, loving Mexican food, keeping in touch with the development that takes place in Latin America, more specifically in Mexico, perhaps holding some of the value that I cannot get rid of my Mexican values, even if I wanted to. If that's been, keeping my up with my traditions, I think that's what I do. Well, I think it has. I mean, because when you are an immigrant, you continue adding like another identity, a layer on top of what you already have. And I know that although I identify myself as a Mexican immigrant, uh, I'm no longer the same person that I was before I moved to the U.S. Not only because of my age, I have lived in the U.S. for over 35 years, but because the people that I left behind are not the same. Perhaps I have changed more than they have. When you are an immigrant, you change more than the people that you leave behind. Well, that's an interesting question. It's difficult to tell because it's like basically uh, somehow anticipating or how the future is. It's an impossible task. I do know that if I would have stayed in Mexico, I would have never experienced all the basically gone through all the experience I have gone through in the U.S. That perhaps my life would have been a little bit more predictable, being close to my family, perhaps moving in circles within Mexico City, and not getting the opportunity to interact with people from different parts of the world. So my life would have been a little bit more predictable, more something that you expect from the people, the lives of people that live in Mexico City. Well, the only advice that I can give them is to be proud of who they are, to be proud of their roots, to be proud of their own parents that have made untold sacrifices so that they are here in the U.S. In spite of perhaps of the challenge that they have faced, in spite of the challenge that they have faced at work. Uh, Even though some of them might not have a very high level of formal education, they are still quite successful in the sense that they have crossed international borders. And crossing international borders is unto itself quite a challenge. And especially you have no documents. So being proud of who they are, regardless of what their formal level of education of the parents are, regardless of where they are, what their current stations in life is, that's my challenge, and always try to meet their own expectations and to fulfill also the dreams of their own parents.